High Admiral Zira stood at the command deck of the Celestial Dominion's flagship, her crystalline skin refracting the starlight as she studied the holographic display of the newly discovered planet. The settlement appeared primitive, barely space-capable colonies scattered across a verdant world. Intelligence suggested these beings called themselves humans. "Admiral, we've detected no orbital defenses," reported First Officer Crix, his mechanical appendages clicking as he processed the data. "Their technology appears to be centuries behind ours. Conquest should be simple." Zyra's iridescent eyes narrowed. Something felt wrong. The Dominion had conquered thousands of worlds, but none had triggered such unusual readings. The planet's surface was dotted with structures that appeared ancient yet showed no signs of decay. Energy signatures pulsed beneath the crust in precise geometric patterns. "Ma'am," called out the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from a beacon at the edge of the system." The holographic display flickered as an ancient recording materialized. A tall figure shrouded in darkness spoke in a language that shouldn't have been translatable, yet somehow every crew member understood. "This sector is protected. The humans are not what they appear. Leave now, or face the consequences of awakening what should remain dormant." Zyra dismissed the warning. The Dominion had faced similar threats before. Launched the first wave. Standard conquest protocol. As drop ships entered the atmosphere, the ground forces reported unusual resistance. The humans fought with primitive projectile weapons, yet demonstrated combat techniques that seemed impossibly advanced. Their movements were too precise, their strategies too perfect. Ground Commander Vex's voice crackled over the comm. "Admiral, something's wrong. These humans, they're toying with us. It's like they know our every move before we make it." The first wave suffered heavy casualties. The second wave never made it to the surface. Their ships were caught in mysterious energy fields that seemed to materialize from nowhere. The third wave refused to launch, the battle-hardened warriors of the Dominion experiencing something they'd never felt before. Fear. In her private quarters, Zyra accessed the Dominion's oldest records. References to humans appeared in ancient warnings, each more dire than the last. One passage caught her attention. "They were the first, the architects of war itself. We thought them primitive, but that was their greatest deception. Their colonies are not settlements. They are seeds, planted across the galaxy, waiting to bloom into something terrible and magnificent." A sudden impact rocked the flagship. On the command deck, chaos erupted as officers reported multiple human vessels appearing from what seemed like tears in space itself. Their design was elegant yet alien, combining technologies the Dominion had never seen before. A transmission cut through all channels, a human voice, calm and almost amused. "You should have heeded the warning. Now let us show you why our ancestors were called the Masters of War." Zyra realized her mistake too late. The humans hadn't been surviving their attacks. They had been studying them, analyzing their tactics, preparing their response. What appeared to be primitive colonies were actually forward operating bases of an advanced civilization that had mastered the art of appearing harmless. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations as the day the mighty Dominion learned they weren't the most advanced species in the galaxy. They were simply the most obvious about it. The orbital battle lasted mere minutes. Dominion warships, pride of the Galactic fleet, were systematically disabled by weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. Admiral Zira watched in horror as spatial distortions tore through her fleet's formations, leaving ships intact but completely powerless. "They're not destroying us," Lieutenant Crix observed, his mechanical parts whirring anxiously. "They're collecting us." Indeed, the disabled Dominion vessels were being methodically corralled into a holding pattern. The human ships, if they could even be called ships, moved with impossible grace, their hulls shifting and reconfiguring like liquid metal. A new transmission reached the bridge, this time from the planet's surface. The holographic projection showed a woman in simple civilian clothes, her bearing unmistakably military. I am General Thea Winters of the Human Defense Initiative. Your fleet is now under our custody. Please prepare for boarding." Zyra's crystalline form pulsed with indignation. "We are the Celestial Dominion. We do not surrender to primitive." The words died in her throat as sections of her flagship's hull simply vanished, replaced by human soldiers in powered armor that made them look more like abstract art than warriors. Their movements were fluid, coordinated, perfect. "The boarding has already begun, Admiral." Winters smiled. "Your shields, like most of your technology, rely on principles we mastered millennia ago." In the following hours, Zyra learned the truth. The human colonies weren't new settlements. They were monitoring stations, staffed by volunteers who lived simple lives while guarding something far more significant. Beneath the planet's surface lay a vast complex of ancient human military installations, part of a network spanning thousands of worlds. "Your civilization sees war as conquest," Winters explained as she led Zyra through underground chambers that dwarf her flagship. "We see it as an art form, a dance of strategy and innovation. Every species that develops space travel eventually finds one of our worlds. It's how we assess potential threats and potential allies." The complex was a technological marvel. Quantum computers that made Dominion I look primitive, weapons that could restructure matter at will. But what truly terrified Zyra was the casual way the humans wielded such power. "Why hide all this?" she asked. "Why pretend to be primitive?" Winters paused at a massive window overlooking a hangar containing thousands of automated war machines. "Because true power isn't about domination, Admiral. It's about control. The galaxy is a complex ecosystem. Sometimes it needs gardeners, not conquerors." Deep scans of the planet revealed the truth. The entire world was artificial, a constructed shell around a military installation that could produce enough firepower to end civilizations. And it was just one of many. The humans hadn't merely mastered war, they had transcended it. Their technology wasn't about destruction, but absolute control over matter and energy itself. They could have eliminated the Dominion fleet with a thought. Instead, they chose to disable, to teach, to guide. "Your civilization stands at a crossroads," Winters declared. "The Dominion can continue its path of conquest until it encounters something it can't defeat, or it can learn from this encounter. The choice is yours." As Zyra watched her mighty fleet hanging powerless in orbit, she realized that human mastery of war wasn't about their weapons or technology. It was about their restraint, their strategy, their ability to shape conflicts toward desired outcomes without unnecessary destruction. The true masters of war weren't those who could destroy the most. They were those who could control the very nature of conflict itself. General Winters' offer of peace lasted exactly 3 days before the Dominion's High Command launched a full-scale invasion of human space. Their pride couldn't accept the existence of a superior force. Their mistake was assuming that the humans' first demonstration of power had been their best. The invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace into perfect ambush positions, only to find their targets had never existed. The human colonies vanished, leaving behind empty worlds and automated defense systems that seemed to operate on principles that defied physics. Admiral Zyra, now acting as a reluctant liaison between the two species, watched from an observation post as the Dominion's finest tactical AIs attempted to predict human movements. "They're using outdated technology deliberately," she realized. "Primitive weapons and tactics, but wielded with impossible precision." The humans fought like ghosts. Their ships would appear as barely detectable patches of altered space, strike with devastating accuracy, then seemingly cease to exist. Ground forces reported engaging human soldiers who could predict their movements perfectly, using weapons that ranged from simple projectile rifles to devices that altered probability itself. "We don't need advanced weapons to defeat you," Commander Marcus Reed explained during a tactical briefing. His weathered face showed no malice, only patience. "We've had millennia to perfect the basics. Every weapon you've developed, we mastered and transcended ages ago." The Dominion's defeat wasn't swift. The humans made sure of that. Each engagement was a lesson, each defeat a carefully choreographed demonstration. They weren't just winning battles, they were teaching. In one sector, human forces used nothing but kinetic weapons, defeating energy shields with precisely calculated impact cascades. In another, they turned the Dominion's own communication networks into weapons, creating feedback loops that disabled entire battle groups without firing a shot. Your civilization sees war as a path to dominance. Reed observed as another Dominion fleet fell to seemingly primitive tactics. We see it as a language. Every strategy tells a story. Every defeat carries a lesson. The greatest humiliation came when human forces began using copied Dominion technology, not their own advanced weapons, to defeat the invasion. They demonstrated mastery of tools they should barely understand, turning the Dominion's own weapons against them with devastating effectiveness. As the invasion crumbled, Zira finally understood. The humans hadn't been hiding their power out of fear or strategy alone. They were preserving something more valuable: the ability to understand and adapt to any form of warfare, no matter how primitive or advanced. They were living archives of combat evolution, capable of fighting at any technological level. Their true strength wasn't in their advanced technology. It was in their fundamental understanding of conflict itself. The Dominion had walked into combat against an opponent that had not only mastered war, but had transcended the very concept of technological advantage. They weren't just fighting a superior force. They were fighting teachers who had spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare itself. Deep within the central archives of the human military complex, Admiral Zira discovered the truth that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The humans hadn't just mastered war. They had engineered peace through controlled conflict for millions of years. "We were the first," Archive Director Raina Blackwood explained, displaying ancient star charts showing humanity's original expansion. The first species to achieve faster-than-light travel, the first to master dimensional engineering, the first to understand the true nature of consciousness and reality. The archives revealed humanity's grand experiment. Instead of establishing an empire, they had seeded thousands of worlds with seemingly primitive colonies. Each was carefully designed to appear vulnerable while housing sophisticated monitoring systems and defense networks. Every spacefaring civilization eventually discovers one of our worlds, Blackwood continued. Their response to finding an apparently primitive species tells us everything we need to know about them. Some attempt peaceful contact. Others, like the Dominion, choose conquest. The true scope of human influence became clear. They had guided the evolution of galactic civilization itself, allowing the rise and fall of empires while maintaining careful balance. The Dominion wasn't the first empire to discover the truth. They were merely the latest in a long line of civilizations that had been taught the true meaning of power. Zira accessed records of previous encounters, each telling a similar story. Aggressive civilizations were contained and educated. Peaceful ones were subtly guided toward advancement. The humans had turned the galaxy into a vast sociological experiment, using controlled conflict to prevent the rise of truly destructive forces. Your civilization's obsession with conquest worried us, Blackwood admitted. The Dominion was approaching technologies that could threaten galactic stability. We had to intervene. The final revelation came in the form of genetic data. The humans hadn't just influenced civilizations through conflict. They had subtly guided the evolution of intelligent life itself. The crystalline biology of Zira's people, the mechanical adaptations of species like Crixus, all were the result of careful genetic engineering performed over millions of years. "We didn't create you," Blackwood clarified, sensing Zira's horror. "We simply ensured that intelligent life would develop along stable paths that would lead to advancement without self-destruction." The humans were more than masters of war. They were the architects of peace, using controlled conflict to prevent the chaos of unrestricted warfare. Their mastery of combat was merely a tool in service of a greater goal: the stable evolution of galactic civilization. The final phase of humanity's intervention began not with a battle, but with an invitation. Representatives from every major galactic civilization gathered at Earth, humanity's ancestral home, hidden for millennia behind dimensional veils. Admiral Zira stood among delegates from 1,000 worlds, watching as humanity revealed its true purpose. The massive amphitheater, built into the side of Mount Everest, housed technology that made even their previous demonstrations seem primitive. "We've guided galactic civilization through countless cycles," Supreme Commander Diana Steele addressed the gathering. "Now it's time for the next phase of evolution." The assembled delegates witnessed humanity's ultimate technology, the ability to share consciousness across species. Through carefully controlled neural interfaces, they experienced thousands of years of history from multiple perspectives. They felt the weight of decisions that had shaped galactic history, understood the careful balance that had prevented total war. The Dominion's invasion had been more than a test. It was a catalyst. Humanity had determined that galactic civilization was ready to advance beyond the need for their guidance. The secret of their power wasn't their advanced technology or combat expertise. It was their understanding of consciousness itself. "War isn't about destruction," Steele explained, her words resonating directly in the minds of all present. "It's about growth, about understanding. Every conflict we've managed has led to this moment." The final gift of humanity to the galaxy was the technology to share understanding across species. Not just communication, but true comprehension. The ability to experience the perspectives of others made traditional warfare obsolete. Conflict would continue, but it would evolve into a tool for growth rather than destruction. In the age that followed, humanity stepped back from its role as galactic shepherds. Their colonies remained, but now served as centers of learning rather than hidden fortresses. The Dominion transformed from an empire of conquest into a federation of mutual understanding. Admiral Zira, now serving as the first non-human instructor at Earth's Strategic Academy, often reflected on her civilization's hubris. They had thought themselves masters of war, only to discover they were students in humanity's grand design. The true mastery of war, she taught her students, wasn't about victory or defeat. It was about understanding the purpose of conflict itself, as a catalyst for growth, a tool for teaching, and ultimately, a path to deeper comprehension of existence itself. A century after humanity's revelation, the galaxy entered a Renaissance period unlike any before. The integration of human consciousness-sharing technology transformed civilization in unexpected ways. Professor Zura, now leading the Galactic Institute of Strategic Studies, watched her students, a mix of species once bitter enemies, share memories and experiences through neural interfaces. The former admiral's latest research focused on an intriguing discovery. Humanity's influence had been even more subtle and profound than initially believed. Ancient ruins across countless worlds revealed a pattern. Humanity hadn't just guided technological and social evolution. They had embedded deep psychological triggers in every sentient species. These triggers weren't controls or limitations, but safeguards ensuring that when species reached certain technological thresholds, they would instinctively seek understanding rather than dominance. The Dominion's transformation was the most dramatic example. Their society, once built on conquest, now specialized in diplomatic crisis resolution. Their crystalline biology, engineered by humans millennia ago, proved uniquely suited for storing and processing shared consciousness experiences. A new discovery on a distant world prompted an emergency council meeting. Archaeological teams uncovered evidence of an ancient threat, a force that had nearly destroyed humanity in their early days. This revelation explained humanity's careful guidance of evolution. They weren't just preventing war, they were preparing the galaxy for something bigger. Humanity's mastery of war hadn't been about combat at all. It was about preparing every sentient species for cooperation against an enemy that existed outside normal spacetime. The true war, the one humanity had been quietly preparing for across millions of years, was yet to come. The age of secrets was ending. The time for ultimate unity was beginning. And now, thanks to humanity's patient guidance, The galaxy was finally ready to face its greatest challenge together. 2 centuries after humanity's great revelation, the threat they had prepared for finally emerged. The dimensional barriers between realities began to fracture, and through these cracks came beings that defied comprehension. The Void Architects, entities that had evolved in dimensions where our laws of physics were merely suggestions. The first incursion occurred in the former Dominion core worlds. Reality itself began to warp and twist as space-time fractured under the influence of these extra-dimensional beings. But this time, the galaxy was ready. Centuries of human guidance had prepared them for exactly this moment. Professor Zura, now serving on the Galactic Defense Council, activated the emergency protocols that humanity had embedded in every major world. Beneath the surface of countless planets, ancient machinery hummed to life. Not weapons, but reality anchors designed to stabilize local space-time against extra-dimensional interference. This is why they chose to guide rather than conquer, Zyra explained to the Council. The Void Architects nearly destroyed humanity in their earliest days of space travel. Instead of seeking revenge or hiding, they spent millions of years preparing the entire galaxy to fight back. The neural networks that humanity had established allowed for instantaneous coordination across species and sectors. Every civilization contributed its unique strengths. The crystalline Dominion races channeled and focused dimensional energies. The mechanical species provided processing power that kept reality stable, and the biological races supplied the creativity and adaptability needed to face an ever-changing enemy. The war against the Void Architects revealed the true genius of humanity's long game. Every conflict they had managed, every civilization they had guided, had been shaped to develop specific capabilities needed for this fight. The Dominion's expertise in energy manipulation, gained through centuries of warfare, now proved essential in containing dimensional breaches. The human colonies, those seemingly primitive settlements, transformed into command centers coordinating the galaxy's defense. The simple structures morphed into massive complexes housing technology that could restructure local reality itself. Every apparent weakness had been a carefully constructed facade, hiding capabilities beyond imagination. Commander Diana Steele's great-granddaughter, Admiral Helena Steele, led the unified galactic forces from Earth's strategic command. Our ancestors understood that defeating the Void Architects required more than advanced technology or military might, she explained. It required the unified consciousness of all sentient species, each contributing their unique perspective to understand and counter an enemy that operated beyond normal comprehension. The battle raged across dimensions. Entire solar systems were transformed into vast defensive structures. Species that had once fought each other now worked in perfect harmony, their shared consciousness allowing them to coordinate on levels previously unimaginable. The neural networks humanity had established became the nervous system of a galaxy-wide defense mechanism. The final confrontation occurred in a region of space that had once been the site of the Dominion's first contact with humanity. The Void Architects, sensing the unified resistance of an entire galaxy, launched their ultimate assault. Reality itself began to unravel as they attempted to reshape space-time to their will. But humanity's preparations proved sufficient. The combined power of thousands of civilizations, each contributing their unique abilities and perspectives, created a force that even beings from beyond dimensions couldn't overcome. The neural networks channeled the combined consciousness of trillions of beings into a singular purpose, the preservation of their reality. In the end, it wasn't superior firepower or advanced technology that won the war. It was the unified will of countless species, their consciousness merged into a galactic symphony of purpose and determination. The Void Architects were not destroyed. They were transformed, their extra-dimensional energy harnessed and integrated into the fabric of normal spacetime. As the dimensional barriers stabilized and the immediate threat passed, the galaxy entered a new era. Humanity's role as secret shepherds was no longer needed. Instead, they became partners in a galactic civilization that had transcended not just warfare, but the very constraints of dimensional existence. Professor Zura, recording the final entry in the archives of strategic evolution, summed up humanity's legacy. They were indeed the ultimate masters of war, not because they were the most powerful or advanced, but because they understood that true victory comes not from defeating an enemy, but from transforming conflict into cooperation. Their greatest achievement wasn't in winning battles, but in preparing an entire galaxy to evolve beyond the need for traditional warfare. The converted void architect energies became the foundation for a new form of civilization, one that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensions, unified by the shared consciousness technology that humanity had developed. The galaxy had not just survived its greatest test, it had transformed into something greater than anyone could have imagined. And somewhere, in the deepest reaches of space, the original human pioneers who had set this grand plan in motion millions of years ago watched with satisfaction as their greatest creation, a unified, multidimensional civilization, took its first steps into an even greater future.